Hello, kitten. Hello, big head. Hello, Grumpy. Hello, Teddy. Hello. Hello and welcome back to Art Therapy with Jen. Today I'm doing a one magazine challenge page. This is where I take one magazine and I make a page using only images and pages that I find in that magazine. And I actually have the full harvest for this magazine on my channel, so I'll go ahead and link that up in an iCard above as well as down below. And as you see there, I took the pages that I'd already saved out of a little folder. I like to do several at once, so I kind of have them at the ready. And now I'm just going through and reacquainting myself with these images that I saved before and just, kind of filling the pages out, splitting them into my main categories. I usually do background, then people, then words, as those are the steps in my process usually. And I just decided I couldn't get a clear direction, so I just pulled out this page, this black and white page with words. It's kind of like the index at the back of the magazine, and I thought I would start there. And we'll just see kind of how that builds up. I will go ahead and say this page was quite a bit of a challenge for me. Number one, I was coming off of Witchy Journal October, so I was kind of still in that, witchy mindset, which was wonderful, and I love that y'all really embrace that. I'll link that playlist as well above and below. Definitely check it out if you're into that witchy goodness. But just going back to that different workflow and just kind of different theme, I was a little rusty, and then this magazine, there really wasn't much that really spoke to me and that I could save, but I know and I trust the process. Usually when I get in there and I get the glue stick out and I start just going to town, the page comes together. Just kind of have to trust the process and sometimes just start gluing stuff down and it'll take you somewhere. So I started with just these black and white word pages. I think it adds just an awesome texture. And now I'm pulling my background images back again and I'm looking at the different colors and trying to see, okay, these can go together, and I make different piles of kind of color families, texture families, and things that in my head would work together. And now I'm going through and just tearing out those elements that I think I might use and just setting aside all the other noise on the page so that I can really focus on, okay, these are my materials. Let's do this. And when I feel like I have enough, then we'll go ahead and start gluing again. You kind of see I set them around my page and I wasn't quite sure, so I just started adding some more of those black and white words. You can't go wrong with black and white. It goes with everything, and I just tried to I'd set one right ways, the other one upside down, and I just wanted this kind of stagger effect. And I really dug that. I'm going to have to work with just plain words more. I see a lot of people using book pages, but I kind of really like that tiny, impossible to read print on the index on the back of the magazine. I really enjoyed that. So now I just start placing my colors down. And like I've said before, one thing I do if I'm kind of at a loss, I just start taking like the same image, like these flowers were from the same page, and I just start putting them kind of mirrored on the page in a way and kind of build up from there. Because at least to me, that usually ends up being very pleasing to your eye, and it gives you a good starting off point to really get that journal mojo going, right? And I picked out a lot of bold colors, a lot of flowers, and just different things. Like I had that fashion photo shoot and I used the smoke in the background like I'm putting down there that was behind the models. So always, especially when you're short on images, really pay attention, because you don't have to use the actual model in the page. You can really use the background as well. So just make sure to look at everything on the page, especially when you're starting out and building up a stash. I mean, I saw just today on Instagram people that they'll take the leftover magazine bits and they'll cut them out in like different shapes and use punches and just so many fun things you can use. I don't know, I'm just so particular, and I just really like the texture in the background of these particular shoots, so I had fun with it. And I'm just building up there, and this is part that I just kind of like. I put my shows on and just glue a bunch of stuff together and layer it, and I don't know, I'm still into the ripped edge thing, so rarely do I cut anything unless it's having to go on the edge, because that'll save me having to trim around the edge later, so because I can't cut a straight line to save my life, so y'all know. So if this got that straight edge that's already on the magazine, I really do like to utilize that. I'm trying to think of what I was watching when I was doing this particular page. I am terrible. Like, I watch full shows, y'all, and like, I don't remember right after I'm watching them. Oh my gosh, it's terrible. Maybe it will come to me. I know now, like, I have such a hard time finding stuff. Like, there's so many things on, like, I have Netflix and Hulu and Prime, you know, and all that. We don't have cable, but we have those services. And, like, there's so many things, but then I have trouble finding things to watch because I gotta, like, be in the mood to watch it. You know what I mean? I just started Elementary again, so I've watched that before. I really can't think of what I've watched. I'll have to get into, like, my history. Oh, my goodness. That's terrible. Now y'all know why I have so many planners and things. I have to keep with it. I started listening to another podcast that's been really interesting. It's called Bear Creek. So that's been interesting. It's like just a few episodes. I think one that has a beginning and end retelling of this crime that happened at Bear Creek. I live for podcasts, y'all. I live for podcasts, especially like true crime podcasts. So I usually have that going on when I'm doing stuff. And now I actually ran out of images. I used all those images that I had torn out. So I went back through and trying to find some more so I can actually cover the whole page. This journal is actually a little bit bigger than an 8.5 by 11. So I remember when I first got into it, I want to think, is it 11 by 14? It might be. I don't know. But when I first got into it, I actually had trouble with the size of it. It was kind of a challenge for me because I typically would always do my journals in a composition book, which is quite a bit smaller. So it uses a lot of images. That's why I say if you're starting out your stash, really keep a keen eye on everything on the page because there's so many things you can use. I used to keep everything. Now my stash is a lot, so I don't go through and keep every single thing. But if I needed to, totally, you can make so many things out of it. So many different techniques out there. Like I said, I see a lot of cool stuff on Instagram, which, y'all got any good recommendations for other, like, art journaling channels or, you know, like collage channels? I don't know if my feed is just messed up. Like, I used to follow some channels and I never get anything popping up in my feed from them. And I have a hard time finding channels that kind of do this type of journaling and everything, if that makes sense. So if you have a channel or you have kind of a channel that you just love to follow, let me know. I'd love to check them out. But I see most people on Instagram now. So I follow a lot of art accounts on Instagram, and I just wondered. Anyway, we finished the background. Let's take a close look at it. So this is what I came up with. I was very happy about it, and it kind of, in my mind, it reminds me, like with the smoke and then the main part of it being white, it kind of gives me cloud feeling, if that makes sense. So now I'm going through my little pitiful, piddly little pile of people focal images that I was able to keep. This magazine, it did not have much in it. I don't know if it's just like not my style, or I don't know. So I had like less than 10 images, and I finally I settled on this girl here. I think she was from a perfume ad, and she's kind of sitting on a swing and just has kind of a thoughtful look on her face, and I like the idea of keeping that rope that she's swinging on and using that almost like she's kind of swinging through the page, or I don't know if that makes sense. Kind of that area to the right with all the words and everything on it. To me, that almost feels like she's swinging through that. So I just went through and we let the fussy cutting begin. I see a lot of people don't like fussy cutting. I actually enjoy it. Is that weird? I enjoy it with these scissors. Okay, I'll say that. I had another pair of scissors that I keep near my desk, you know, for things like packages and mail and just whatever, just like a little dinky pair of scissors. And I was too lazy to walk 4 steps across my tiny office, and I tried to start cutting out something the other day using those, and it was torture. So I had to get these little scissors that I don't know if they were my dad's or my mom's, but we've had them, oh my gosh, they're probably 30-40-year-old scissors. So they're just wonderful. They're 100% metal, sharp as everything, because I have cut myself and it just goes through like butter, and they're great. So not all scissors are created equal. I will say that. I could not imagine trying to do it with scissors that have like that bulky plastic on them. And believe it or not, y'all, I'm only using that one focal image. This is like a first for me. I wanted to be a little more simple with it, and none of the images that I picked from the magazine really went with her vibe. And I just love this idea where she's kind of swinging through this or coming through this, and I was starting to feel it. So now I get my words, and just like everything else in this magazine, there wasn't that many words that really spoke to me. Now this is another thing as well. When I was first starting out, I saved every word in a magazine, like every word, because you can save, 5 different these or thes and a and of and you can do so many things with it. You can splice it together like those old school kidnapper notes. I did add that red flower there. I was filling it. I thought it went with the red across the page and brought that together, and it just seemed quite special to me. Y'all know I like to have little special items in my collage. But there's just so many things. And here I'm actually going to be putting different words together to make it all try to make sense, and moving them around on the page. And this is one of my favorite parts, and I think it's one of your all's favorite parts as well, because when I was doing my Witchy Journal October, my videos where I put the words together were the ones that did like the best by far in that series. And that just makes me happy. Y'all just embrace my weird little mind with my words that I put on the page. You just got to use creative license, and you just have to be unapologetic about it. It's kind of like people were asking me in that one, where do I find, quote unquote witchy images or this? None of them are witchy. It's how you put them together, and how you just, you're going to say, by George, these are going to be witchy images. And you put them together and kind of use your creative license. And same here, like those words, they're not a cloud, they're not a clearing, but I'm going to say they are, and that's what we're going with. So I appreciate y'all going on the crazy journey with me, right? I don't know. I think a lot of things, like, even if they might not make sense, if you say them with enough confidence and you believe it enough, It works, right? But anyway, whole nother story, whole nother day. So at the bottom there, I put two different clips together. So we got the power of reflection, which that's going to be the main theme of this page. And then toward the middle on the left, I also put two together. It says love and the visible woman. So love the visible woman. And then at the top there, we have reinvent and then the hero. So digging that. Y'all see the theme coming together? I'll tell you, reinvent and reflection are the two main words here. And now I'm looking through my words because it don't feel quite done. So I need more. So I added wake up. So we have reinvent the hero, love the visible woman, wake up, the power of reflection. So we'll take a closer look at it here. And this is honestly where I left the page for like a week or two. I shot this page over several different journal sessions because I was pretty happy with it there, you know, just leaving it as magazines, and you could totally stop there. But I came back to it and I felt like I wanted to go with that more cloud and clearing type of vibe more. So I pulled out my white paint. And this is just white craft paint. It's the white from Apple Barrel. And I just put a little bit out on a Post-it there to the left and got a little bit on my finger. I didn't want very much. Almost like the dry brushing equivalent of using your finger. I didn't want to load it up when I was doing the little smoky wisp. I did load it up a little bit more when I was going around the borders, and I would let it partially dry and then I would pat it some more. And I just wanted to really just go ham on this whole misty cloud, kind of reflection, dreamy, insert your adjective here. And so I started going around the border. You'll see me, I'll go around the words, and I'm just adding this mist. Because to me, she's kind of reflecting, she's reinventing like what she's been taught, and seeing that, you know, you got to reinvent the hero, as it says up at the top. You know, what you're told is the most important, or what you're told should be the priority, and what makes you the quote-unquote hero ain't necessarily the case. And it's really important to just kind of wake up, you know, love the visible woman you are, and kind of use that power of reflection, if you feel me. So it's kind of like she's swinging through this cloud, and it's like a breath of fresh air in a way of, how do we put this? Like, have you ever had stuff and you just kind of make a realization or learn a lesson, and it's almost like a veil has been lifted, or smoke has just been like somebody's run through there with a leaf blower, buddy, and there ain't no smoke left. And all this stuff is so clear, and you just get this sense of clarity. That's kind of where I'm going with this. And also, I'm just having fun patting that paint down. I didn't put it down to the point where you couldn't see what was underneath it. So I wanted the magazine still shining through, but I definitely wanted to look like there was a mist or smoke or a cloud on there, just to give it that dreamy quality. And I was happy with it because, like I said, I let this set for a little bit and I went back to it. So I let that white dry completely. I think this is actually the next day. And I broke out something I've not used in a long time, this little watercolor set I have. And this is just your basic, like, I think it's called student watercolors. It's like the hard cake paint. I think it was like $10. And I just wanted to play with that. I've only used this palette like once or twice, so I am no authority by any stretch of the imagination on watercolor, but y'all know I just like to try stuff out sometimes. And I had to be very careful with this, y'all, because any of y'all that work with magazine, you know water and magazine is bad. We don't want those anywhere near each other because we get crinkle city, unless you're going for that, you're going for that crinkle and that warped and all that I have to be very careful. And with these being like hard pans, I guess that's what you call it. I don't know. They're not the, I don't know. I don't know anything about paint. But I really had to get them wet, and I wanted it to be these dreamy colors. So one reason I wanted to use these watercolors is because you can really control the opacity. And I wanted there to be just a wisp and a hint of color, but I still wanted that white to show through, and I also still wanted the magazine to come through. So I wanted it to be like a transparent layer, like if you were on Photoshop or something. And so I'm going in with, you'll see me use a kind of light hot pink, a purple, a medium purple, and then a yellow here in a bit. And I'm just being very careful to really only hit the parts that have the paint on them, because it kind of gives a barrier between the water and the magazine. Now, I did get a couple little edges of the magazine, and sure enough, that crap just crinkled like everything else. So if you attempt this, do be very careful. And you'll also see me with a paper towel there, and I try to keep it from running on the unexposed magazine. So, but overall, I really like the kind of dreamy effect this had. So I'll definitely be using this again in the future. It was just fun, and it's and the brush also I was using was pretty crap. It's the one that comes with it. But me being me in the mood that day, I didn't want to walk the 4 steps across my office and get another paintbrush. I was in the zone, and I was like, you know what? This paintbrush is here. We gonna use it. And it did the job. It did the job. And I just had fun blending it. And oh my gosh, I have to learn more about watercolors, because the way they're blending and the way you can kind of control their opacity and you can continue to move them around, like, I was feeling that. But like I said, just be wary if you do this with magazine and water. They don't like each other. So let's take a close look of how it looks after I did the white paint and the watercolor. And when I added that yellow, my little sparks in my brain was going off again. So I thought, I want to add some metallic. I really like this kind of highlight. So I picked up, or I've had in my stash, I picked up out of my stash a yellow gold ink, and then I have this copper paint. The yellow gold ink is a Liquitex acrylic ink, I think. I don't know. I've had it for ages. I'm just happy to use it. And this copper type paint is from Finnabar. I think it's called Sparks. And I'm just taking a little detail brush, akin to what you would use in nail art. That's where I learned some detail painting, y'all. Y'all want to get good detail painting? You do some nail art with like nail polish. You got to paint on a little bitty nail. But anyway, so I'm just taking that copper paint and I'm outlining my words. And again, I'm being very careful because moisture and magazine, they're not good friends. So in this paint, it could potentially buckle it. So very careful. And now I'm just going around and I'm creating kind of these stars, kind of, but they're that kind like when you're not good at drawing stars and you just make like a bunch of X's and sticks on top of each other. I like the effect though, I do, but y'all know what I'm talking about. Like you start with an X and then you start with a plus sign on top of it, and then and then I'm just going through and making little X's and dots kind of to look like stars or metal blowing in the breeze. But I just had fun with it, and I don't know if the camera is really doing it justice. This paint just glows, like it's so gorgeous. And I'm just adding those little accents. Again, she's having a breakthrough, so we want these little shiny magical elements because it's this moment of clarity, and it's just like, oh, you know, just that type of feeling. And I've had a lot of that in my life lately. There's been a lot of crap, but there's been some clarity in the crap for sure. I just ruined that whole dreamy vibe there. just who I am, y'all. So now, that wasn't the exact color that I wanted. So I'm taking that yellow gold ink, and I put some out on my Post-it there, my fancy palette. And I'm going over the inner edge of where I put that paint to give it kind of a glow on that edge and make a kind of a different color, because this ink is actually quite transparent. So it goes on top of that copper paint that I put down, but it doesn't cover it. It just kind of gives it a almost like a filter effect on top of it. And it just glows, and it gives it just this, I don't know. I didn't like either color for this page by it themselves, but mixing together, it was like gold. Oh, the puns. I love puns. Like, give me all the dad jokes. Give me all the puns. All day. And I'm just going around and adding little embellishments until I'm happy. Said I outlined the words, I outlined the flower, and now I'm just going through and adding little dots, because when I do little like stars or snowflakes or whatever I've done in the past, I like to do at least 3 different sizes because my brain works in odd numbers. So now that that's dried a little bit, I'm going in with ye old trusty whiteout pen, and I'm not doing too much. I'm just adding dots on the corners of the words, so just on the, the actual corners of the images that I got out, and then I'm adding dots around the flower, just on the tips and in between the petals. And then I thought, I really want this girl to stand out, so it looks like she's really coming through. So I did a whiteout outline all around her, which was, when you're left-handed, y'all, this was not fun. But I got it done. And then I'm just adding some more. So I add little borders to the sides there. And then I'm putting some just random stars. I'm doing little accents and little dots around just to kind of carry that white throughout the page, because it really stood out and I liked it, that accent. And I just like using a whiteout pen. And it's always interesting. Like I said, I'm left-handed, and I have to really hold my hand up completely from the page, or it'd just be mud all smeared over there. And another thing I like about the whiteout pen, it takes a little bit to dry, so depending on what type of opacity I want, I can just kind of pat it and go from there. And then I decided I didn't want just the dots in the corners. I was going to outline the words, but not fully, just the horizontal lines. I kind of dug it. And then I decided I was going to do some scribbling with the whiteout pen. So I did some curly cues and all that all around the page. We're just throwing everything at this page, y'all, but the kitchen sink, because why not? Sometimes you just got to. And I reorganized my office, and there's all these supplies that are going, use me. I've been sitting here for a year and a half. And I love it. So there I am adding my curly cues. I love it. So here's what it looks like after the metallic paint and the whiteout. We're coming together. But wait, there's more. So I decided it was a little too light, and I wanted to add like another element, something that was really bold, really bright, but would still let stuff come through and be a little messy. Why not? So I got just some white cardstock that I've had for literal ages, and I channeled my inner third grader, where you would make the snowflakes from folding the paper over. And so I made me a little stencil, that would double as a Christmas ornament. Or, a school project on the thing. And I mainly was doing this because we're going to be using some spray dyes and spray inks. Very messy. Do not do this if you don't want your hand to be dyed unless you have gloves on. I didn't want to be really precise. I didn't want that exact shape, but I did want something that I could control, where I wouldn't get ink on the words, and I could kind of control where that ink was going to go. So I'm not wanting to get a precise shape, if that makes sense, I'm wanting to make sure I don't get ink like covering up words, covering up her, you know. And one thing I like about these inks too, when they dry a lot lighter than what they go in or go on as, and you can really control the opacity. And those little really bright elements, and they added kind of that dark and the light kind of coming, I don't know, I think it just gave an element to the page where she's kind of leaving that darker area behind and coming through to the lighter area. And another thing, a happy accident I found out that I will remember for the future, all those little curly cues I put down with the whiteout, they resisted the ink. So the white still came through completely white. So very interesting, just FYI, which I loved because it just, that layer looks like it's behind the whiteout. So whatever they make whiteout out of, you ain't gonna dye it. And I just love it. I just love it. I did dye my hands. It did take 2 days for the ink to come off my hands. I was fine with it. I was off work for those days, so that's cool. But you might want to use, you know, gloves if you have to be somewhere important. And then my little cardstock was a little bit saturated, so before that ink dried, I just wanted to kind of smear it around the page a little bit just to add some smaller elements. And believe it or not, y'all, I did not get any of that on my desk. I'm impressed. But that's where we're going to stop the page today. I love how this one turned out. Very different than what I usually do, just have the one girl. I like how the story came together, and I love those shiny elements, and I just had fun. It's nice to be back into the one magazine challenges, getting back in the groove, and I just enjoyed it. I just enjoyed every step of it. Y'all know I'm a nerd. I do this because I really like doing it. So I hope y'all enjoyed the video. Again, thank y'all so much for watching. So don't be afraid to use different materials. Don't be afraid to not use different materials. I think this page would have been awesome just with the magazine part as well. But sometimes it's just fun to get messy and try stuff out and throw everything from the craft closet at it, right? Well, thank y'all so much. I hope y'all are having a wonderful November and a wonderful start to the most wonderful time of the year. And I will see y'all soon in the next one. Bye, guys.